There's a silent battle going on in the minds and hearts of countless people, good people, well-meaning people, who are constantly on edge, constantly irritated, and constantly controlled by the moods, actions, and words of others. One minute you're at peace, and the next someone says something offhand, and just like that, your entire mood shifts, your heart tightens, your face burns. The day feels ruined. And the saddest part is they didn't steal your peace, you handed it over. But what if you could live untouchable? What if you could move through life unaffected by the chaos around you? What if people's actions, insults, or cold stares no longer had the power to shake your spirit? This isn't a fantasy, it's a reality available to anyone who chooses to live it. And it begins with one powerful truth: anger is a choice, not a chain. Anger often disguises itself as something involuntary. You hear it all the time: he made me so mad. She gets under my skin. They know how to push my buttons. These phrases are so common that we rarely pause to question them. But let's challenge this thinking. Can anyone truly make you angry without your permission? Or have we simply conditioned ourselves to believe that we are slaves to emotions we were created to govern? You see, anger is not a reflex, it's a response. It may be a fast one, it may feel automatic, but underneath that surge of emotion lies a decision, a choice either made consciously or allowed through years of unconscious habit. We often blame others for igniting our temper, but the reality is the fire was already there. Others just exposed it. The trigger wasn't the person, it was the lack of control we've developed over our emotional thermostat. Think of it this way: imagine a thermostat on your wall. That thermostat doesn't change the temperature, it regulates it. You decide whether it's hot or cold, whether the environment is peaceful or hostile. Yet many of us hand over that thermostat to everyone who walks by: a rude cashier, turn it up; a disrespectful coworker; a friend forgets to call back. Full-blown emotional storm. We live like thermostats with no passwords, giving access to anyone who happens to be near. But what if you could take that control back? What if you realize that nothing outside you has the authority to dictate what happens inside you unless you grant it? That's not denial, that's dominion. Dominion over your emotional space. Dominion over your mental clarity. Dominion over your peace. It's tempting to think anger validates us. It gives us a sense of control or power in a moment of offense. I'm angry, so I must be right. They did me wrong, so I have a right to feel this way. And yes, anger is a natural emotion. It signals that something feels unjust. But just because it shows up doesn't mean it deserves a seat at the table. You don't have to serve it a 3-course meal and let it sleep in your guest room. Let it knock on the door, recognize it for what it is, and then send it on its way. You are not weak because you refuse to explode. You are not soft because you chose stillness. In fact, the strongest people are not those who retaliate, but those who can stand calm while the storm rages around them. Strength is measured not by how loud you can shout, but by how deeply you can stay grounded when everything is pulling at your emotions. Let's also be real: anger is exhausting. It drains you. It tightens your chest. It clouds your judgment. It makes you say things you don't mean and do things you regret. And afterward, when the smoke clears, you're left picking up the pieces of a moment that could have been avoided had you just paused, breathed, and reminded yourself, I am not a prisoner to this feeling. The truth is, anger only dominates where self-awareness is absent, and self-awareness is a spiritual discipline as much as it is an emotional one. The more you learn to recognize the early signs, the tension in your chest, the tightening of your jaw, the inner dialogue that starts to build, the more you empower yourself to respond instead of react. That's how you begin to break the chain. That's how you regain authority over your own mind. You were never meant to be ruled by the external. You were created to rule within. And once you fully grasp that anger is not something you fall into, but something you step toward, you unlock a level of freedom that many spend their whole lives searching for but never find, because they keep looking outward instead of inward. If you truly want to stop feeling angry or bothered by people, you must go beyond managing your reactions. You must master the inner world, because long before anger ever shows up on your face or in your words, it starts as a whisper inside. It's not the chaos around you that overwhelms you. It's the chaos within you that makes the outer world seem louder than it really is. Let's be honest. Most people live outwardly focused lives. They constantly monitor who said what, who looked at them wrong, who ignored them, who gave a cold tone, who didn't applaud their effort. They measure their emotions based on external input. And as a result, They're always on edge, always on alert, always waiting for the next offense. That's not living, that's surviving. That's not peace, that's panic dressed in routine. But peace doesn't begin with perfect conditions. Peace begins in the heart. It's not found in quiet places, it's created in quiet minds. When the inside of you becomes stronger than the noise around you, no person, no insult, no cold shoulder will have the power to steal what you've planted deep within. You see, the real war is never with the person in front of you. The real war is with your own thoughts. The late night overthinking, the imaginary arguments, the constant rewinding of what someone said earlier that day. This is the battlefield. It's not just draining your energy. It's hijacking your ability to live in the present, to hear your own voice, to know your own worth. Mastering the inner world means learning to stand guard over your mind and your emotions. It means choosing what thoughts are allowed to stay and which ones must go. You don't have to believe every thought that enters your head. Not every emotion deserves a reaction. Not every trigger needs to become a trauma. Yes, life will test you. People will misunderstand you. They will talk behind your back, cut in line, forget your efforts, roll their eyes, slam the door. But your peace does not have to be tied to their behavior. When your sense of security is rooted in the approval of others, your peace becomes fragile. But when it's rooted in something deeper, something unshakable, then no mood, no slight, no disrespect can crack it. This is why you must build an inner world that's strong enough to withstand the winds of offense. You build it in solitude, in silence, in prayer, in reflection. You build it by feeding your mind with truth and not letting every passing opinion take root. You build it by reminding yourself who you are, not just reacting to how others treat you. Have you ever met someone who walks into a room and their presence brings calm? They don't even have to speak loud or draw attention, but just being around them makes you feel steady. That kind of peace doesn't come from charm. It doesn't come from status. It comes from someone who has mastered their inner world. They've wrestled with their thoughts. They've learned to quiet the noise. And because they are anchored on the inside, they can't be pulled apart by what happens outside. You can become that person. It doesn't happen overnight. It happens by being intentional, by choosing daily to not let bitterness take root, by refusing to let your mind run wild with assumptions, by confronting your triggers instead of pretending they don't exist, by replacing blame with responsibility. Not because you're at fault, but because you're the one who wants to be free. Freedom doesn't always come from changing the people around you. Sometimes it comes from changing how deeply they can reach inside you. And when you fortify that inner world, you're no longer easily shaken. You no longer need everyone to behave for you to feel okay. You stop reacting, stop explaining, stop trying to manage every outcome. And instead, you walk in peace that doesn't depend on the weather outside, but flows from the stillness you've cultivated within. One of the greatest emotional traps you can fall into is taking other people's behavior personally. You begin to internalize every rude remark, every cold shoulder, every sarcastic tone. You think, did I do something wrong? Am I not enough? Why are they treating me like this? Before long, you find yourself carrying the weight of someone else's dysfunction as if it belongs to you. But here's the truth you need to hear and never forget. People do not reveal who you are, they reveal who they are. How someone treats you is not a mirror of your value, it's a reflection of their own inner condition. If someone is constantly angry, short-tempered, dismissive, or cruel, that has far more to do with what's happening inside of them than it does with you. Yet we live in a world where we've been trained to internalize everything. A friend becomes distant and we blame ourselves. A coworker gossips and we wonder what we did to deserve it. A stranger lashes out and our day is thrown into confusion. But what if you could change the lens? What if instead of absorbing people's behavior, you observed it? Not in judgment, but in wisdom. When someone shows you their impatience, they're telling you about their stress, not your worth. When someone ignores you, they're showing you their emotional limitations, not your lack of importance. When someone disrespects you, they are exposing their own wounds, their own pride, their own struggle for power, not a reflection of what you deserve. It takes maturity and emotional discipline to understand this, because when people hurt you, the natural reaction is to defend, to explain, to prove your worth. But the problem is, the more you try to get people to treat you right, the more power you give them over your peace. And that's a battle you'll never win, because you're fighting on the wrong battlefield. You're trying to fix their heart when what you need to do is guard yours. Don't let the immaturity of others reduce you to a version of yourself that no longer reflects your true character. Don't stoop to their level just to feel like you've won. Because in the long run, dignity is a better victory than dominance. It's not weakness to walk away from someone who won't treat you with honor. It's strength. It's not arrogance to stop internalizing people's drama. It's self-respect. Every day people carry their own pain, their own pressure, their own unresolved trauma. And often they don't know how to process it. So what do? They project it, they transfer it, they take the storm in their heart and try to rain it down on yours. But if you're grounded, if you've done the inner work, then their storm will not shake your sky. Here's something powerful. Just because someone has access to your life doesn't mean they have access to your identity. Their opinions, their moods, their shifting behavior. None of that gets to rewrite your worth. You don't need their applause to feel valid. You don't need their agreement to know you're right with yourself. When you understand that, you become free from the prison of trying to control what others think or say or do. It's not your job to carry the emotional responsibility for someone else's inability to be kind, clear, or calm. That's a burden they have to deal with, and they will in time. Your job is to stay rooted, to respond with grace, to protect your peace, to not let their storm become your identity. The next time someone treats you in a way that stings, stop and remind yourself, this is not about me, this is a reflection of them. Don't absorb it. Don't react to it. Just observe it. And then decide, does this energy deserve space in my mind? Does this person's chaos belong in my spirit? If the answer is no, release it, not in bitterness, but in clarity. Because at the end of the day, how people act is their report card, not yours. There is a vast and powerful difference between reacting and responding. One is impulsive, the other is intentional. One is born out of emotion, the other out of wisdom. One can destroy trust, peace, and relationships in seconds. The other can preserve dignity, protect peace, and even disarm conflict before it begins. If you truly desire to live a life where anger and frustration no longer control you, you must learn the discipline of responding instead of reacting. Every day, life gives us opportunities to react. Someone cuts you off in traffic, someone interrupts you in a meeting, someone talks behind your back or speaks to you with disrespect. These moments trigger something deep inside. Your pulse quickens, your chest tightens, your thoughts race, and the old habit kicks in. The need to react, to snap, to clap back, to defend yourself, to show them they picked the wrong one today. And in the moment, it feels justified. It feels empowering. It feels like you're standing up for yourself. But after the dust settles, what's left? Often it's regret. Often it's damage that didn't need to happen. The problem with reacting is that it gives control to the other person. You become like a puppet, dancing to the pull of someone else's behavior. Your emotional state becomes dictated by someone who might not even be aware, or worse, someone who wants to provoke you. But when you respond, you take that power back. You reclaim your authority. You prove that your peace is not for sale and your emotions are not available to be manipulated. Responding requires pause, and that pause is powerful. It's not weakness, it's wisdom. In that pause, you can breathe, you can think, you can ask yourself questions that reactions never stop to ask. Is this worth my energy? What is this person really trying to achieve? Do I need to speak right now, or is silence more effective? Am I operating out of my spirit or out of my ego? That moment of awareness can change the outcome of the next 5 minutes or the next 5 years. Let's be clear, responding does not mean you allow people to walk over you. It does not mean you ignore problems or tolerate disrespect. It means you choose how you engage. You refuse to let someone else's immaturity drag you into a battle that is beneath your calling. You refuse to let temporary emotions cause permanent damage. You're still standing up for yourself, but you're doing it with calm authority, not chaotic reaction. Responding is an act of maturity. It is the mark of someone who knows themselves, who has mastered their impulses, who refuses to let anger become their master. And you don't need to have all the answers in the moment to respond wisely. Sometimes the wise response is simply, let me get back to you. Sometimes it's a calm and steady silence. Other times it's a firm but respectful boundary. But in every case, the key is that you chose it. It wasn't a reflex, it was a decision. You owe it to yourself to grow beyond the trap of instant reactions. You are not a slave to your triggers. You have been given a mind to think, a heart to discern, and a spirit that can lead you if you let it. You don't have to match chaos with chaos. You don't have to meet disrespect with rage. When you respond, you become the thermostat, not the thermometer. You set the temperature, you don't just measure it. This kind of self-control doesn't come overnight. It comes through awareness, it comes through reflection, it comes through failing and trying again. But each time you choose to respond instead of reacting, you're building a stronger, calmer, more powerful version of yourself. And soon people will notice, not because you shout the loudest, not because you always win the argument, but because you're unbothered, stable, focused, not easily moved. And that kind of presence speaks louder than 1,000 angry words ever could. There's a heavy weight many people carry without even realizing it. It's not physical, but it affects their posture. It's not visible, but it clouds their vision. It's the weight of unforgiveness. It sits in the corners of the heart like a slow poison, corroding joy, disrupting peace, and quietly hardening the soul. And though the offense may have happened long ago, the grip it holds today is still strong. Why? Because somewhere deep inside, we've confused forgiveness with permission. We've believed the lie that to forgive is to say, it was okay. But here, this forgiveness is not about excusing them, it's about freeing you. When you hold on to offense, bitterness becomes your prison. You may think you're punishing the other person by holding a grudge, but in reality, you're the one serving the sentence. The anger, the resentment, the need for revenge, it all drains your spirit like a slow leak in your soul. You smile on the outside, but you're constantly haunted by what was done, what wasn't said, how they walked away, how they betrayed, disrespected, or ignored you. And every time you replay it, your peace pays the price. But when you forgive, you don't let them off the hook. You simply take yourself off the hook with them. You refuse to keep drinking poison hoping they get sick. You stop carrying around baggage that doesn't belong in your future. You break the emotional tie that connects you to a painful moment that was never yours to relive forever. Forgiveness is not weakness. It's not denial. It's not spiritual amnesia. It is the conscious decision to say, I will not let this moment define the rest of my life. People often say, I can't forgive them. They don't deserve it. But forgiveness isn't about what they deserve. It's about what you deserve. You deserve peace. You deserve freedom. You deserve a heart that's not tied to yesterday's betrayal. You deserve to breathe without the weight of someone else's brokenness crushing your chest. Holding on to the hurt keeps you bound to the very person who hurt you. Forgiveness breaks that chain. Now, forgiveness doesn't mean reconciliation. It doesn't mean you let the person back into your life with full access. Boundaries still matter. Trust still matters. Forgiveness is not an open door. It's a clean heart. You can forgive someone and still decide that your healing requires distance. You can release them from your heart and still protect your space. Because this isn't about pretending nothing happened. It's about choosing that what happened won't control what happens next. And yes, forgiveness can feel unnatural. Everything in you might scream to hold on to the pain, to make them feel what you felt, to demand justice. But here's the deeper truth: healing never happens through revenge. True healing flows from letting go. When you forgive, you're not saying, they were right. You're saying, I refuse to carry what's wrong any longer. There's a kind of inner strength that comes from this release. Suddenly, the memories no longer sting like they used to. The name no longer stirs rage. The event no longer defines your story. You begin to reclaim your identity not as a victim of betrayal or abuse or abandonment, but as someone who rose above it, who learned, who grew stronger, who walked away free. And make no mistake, forgiveness is a process. Some days it's easy, other days it's hard. Some days you feel light, other days you feel the weight creeping back. But every time you choose to let go, again and again, you chip away at the bitterness. You take back another piece of your peace. You become lighter, freer, more whole. Unforgiveness keeps the wound open. But forgiveness, true forgiveness, starts the healing. Not because they said sorry, not because they changed, not because they deserved it, but because you deserve to live free. In a world that's constantly pulling your attention to the petty, the temporary, and the shallow, it takes real strength to lift your eyes and focus on the bigger picture. It's easy to get caught up in who said what, who didn't acknowledge your effort, who criticized your ideas, or who tried to dim your light. It's easy to become obsessed with the small offenses, the little jabs, the rolling eyes, the moments that sting but don't truly matter in the grand scheme of your life. And yet, many people live their entire lives stuck in these moments, angry, distracted, bitter, not because they lack purpose, but because they forgot how to rise above the noise. But when you learn to shift your focus, you begin to see how small some things really are. Not because they didn't hurt at the time, but because they pale in comparison to your calling. You weren't created to fight every battle. You weren't designed to respond to every insult. Your destiny is far too great, your energy far too precious, your peace far too valuable to waste it on things that do not move you forward. And when you lock into that truth, something changes. You start filtering life differently. You begin asking, is this worth my focus? Does this serve where I'm going? Does this moment deserve my peace, my energy, my attention? And if the answer is no, you let it pass. Think of it like this: an eagle doesn't concern itself with the noise on the ground. It doesn't waste time pecking at chickens or flapping in confusion with pigeons. An eagle soars above it all because its vision is elevated. It sees farther, flies higher, and focuses deeper. That's not arrogance, that's alignment, that's purpose in motion. And you, too, have the ability to rise. But you must be willing to stop giving energy to distractions that have nothing to do with your calling. You see, not every battle is worth your sword. Not every offense deserves your reaction. When you are constantly reacting to what people do or say, you're handing over control of your life in small, quiet ways. You may not notice it right away, but little by little, your mind becomes cluttered with the irrelevant. Your heart becomes heavy with unnecessary weight. And before you know it, you're worn out, not from chasing your purpose, but from chasing people who were never supposed to have that much access to you in the first place. Focusing on the bigger picture is about reclaiming your vision. It's about understanding that your peace is not dependent on being understood by everyone. Your worth is not tied to whether they like you or not. Your future does not depend on their applause. The bigger picture reminds you that your mission is too important to be distracted by every critic, every skeptic, every moment of drama that life throws your way. It's also about perspective. When you look at your life from a place of vision instead of reaction, the little things lose their grip. That co-worker's sarcasm, it's just noise. That family member's passive aggression, a reflection of their own battle. That stranger's rude comment online, not even worth your time. You begin to understand that some people are meant to test your character, not derail your journey. And every time you choose to stay focused, to keep your eyes ahead, you grow stronger. When you choose the bigger picture, you start investing your energy in growth, not grudges. You start asking better questions. Not, how could they do this to me? But how can I grow through this? What is this teaching me? How can I become stronger, wiser, more grounded because of this? That mindset transforms your reactions into revelations. It takes the small offenses and turns them into stepping stones for your next level. And that's the power of perspective. When you stay anchored in the bigger picture, you stop living from a place of emotional survival. You start living from a place of spiritual strategy. You stop being pulled into every argument, every comment, every slight. You rise, you choose purpose over pettiness, and you discover a freedom that's not based on what happens around you, but what you choose to see within you. You can have the strongest mind, the sharpest vision, and the greatest intentions, but if you don't guard your heart, all of it can be compromised. Not in one dramatic blow, but slowly, quietly over time. A little offense here, a little bitterness there, a subtle grudge, an unspoken hurt, a lingering disappointment, and before you know it, your heart, once open, soft, and full of life, becomes hard, cold, and reactive. This is why guarding your heart isn't just good advice, it's a daily necessity. Your heart is the command center of your emotions, your decisions, your peace, your joy. It's where your beliefs live. It's where your dreams grow. It's where your relationships are birthed and nurtured. Everything flows from it, so if it's infected, everything that flows from it will be affected. If you let offense settle in your heart, even your purest motives will become distorted. If you allow jealousy, insecurity, or past wounds to sit there unattended, they will shape how you see the world and how you treat the people in it. Guarding your heart doesn't mean building walls so high that no one can reach you. It means building gates, boundaries that are intentional and discerning. You open the gate to peace, wisdom, love, and truth, but you close it to manipulation, drama, dishonor, and emotional poison. You decide what enters and what stays. You choose which voices are allowed to speak into your life and which ones you no longer entertain. Because if you leave the gate open to everything, you'll soon find yourself overwhelmed by things that never should have had access to you. This is especially important when you're walking through a season of offense, betrayal, or misunderstanding, because in those moments your heart is vulnerable. You're tempted to replay conversations, to nurse the pain, to justify your anger, to rehearse revenge in your mind. And if you don't actively guard your heart, those thoughts will take root and grow into something much darker than the original wound. What started as a moment of hurt can become a lifelong habit of hardness if you don't intervene. Guarding your heart means being proactive, not passive. It means you start the day with intention. You don't just wait to see how people treat you before deciding how you feel. You don't wait until someone says something offensive before you decide to protect your peace. You wake up and choose what kind of environment your heart will live in. Will it be one of gratitude or complaint, of grace or suspicion, of calm or chaos? That decision sets the tone for how you respond to everything else. And yes, it takes discipline. You'll have moments where you want to let your guard down, where you want to explode, where you want to match someone's energy just to prove you can. But strength doesn't come from unleashing every emotion. It comes from knowing you could, but choosing not to. Because your heart is too precious to waste on fleeting feelings and pointless battles. You're building something greater. You're protecting something eternal. There are people who will try to dump their anger, their gossip, their negativity into your space. Not always out of malice, sometimes just because that's all they know. But if you don't set a boundary, they will treat your heart like a trash can, leaving behind emotional residue that was never yours to carry. Guarding your heart means saying, not here, not today, not in me, not out of hatred, but out of wisdom, out of the understanding that what you allow and shapes who you become. You've come too far to let someone else's brokenness take root in your soul. You've grown too much to let old habits find new places to hide. So every day, remind yourself, my heart is not a playground for chaos. It is a garden for purpose, peace, and power. Guard it not once, not when things fall apart, but daily, because the health of your heart determines the quality of your life. You weren't designed to live at the mercy of other people's moods, attitudes, or actions. You weren't created to be easily triggered, constantly irritated, or emotionally exhausted by every offense that comes your way. No, you were made to live anchored, grounded, unshaken. And that kind of life doesn't come by chance, it comes by choice. A daily decision to rise above, to stay centered, to protect your peace like the treasure it is. Every point we've explored is more than a strategy. It's a shift in identity. When you realize that anger is not your master, that peace is your birthright, and that you have the power to choose your response, everything changes. When you master your inner world, you no longer bend under the weight of outer chaos. When you stop internalizing the behavior of others, you stop questioning your worth. When you choose response over reaction, you take your power back. And when you forgive, not to excuse them, but to free yourself, you cut the chain that's kept you bound to pain you didn't deserve in the first place. It's not that the offenses will stop coming. It's not that the world will suddenly become more kind. But you will be different. You'll be rooted. You'll be calm. You'll be clear. You'll walk through storms with the kind of quiet confidence that can't be faked and can't be shaken. Because your eyes are on the bigger picture. Because your heart is guarded. Because your peace has become your position, not your reaction. So today, let this be your decision. I will not be ruled by offense. I will not hand over my peace. I will not give my energy to what doesn't grow me. I will live above it. I will walk in strength. I will guard my heart. And I will not be easily moved. Let the world do what it will. Let people come and go. Let the noise rise. But as for you, stand tall, stay rooted, and remain untouchable. You've already won the war when you no longer need to fight the battle.